This is a Queen Bee Radio High School sports presentation.
Welcome to the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup. We are now in the postseason for winter sports, coming off regional wrestling this past weekend. We have girls basketball playoffs in the Illinois side, and the playoff brackets came out for the WIAA girls basketball, we think. We'll dive into that in just a little bit. But let's start off with the girls basketball side of things in the state of Illinois. We're joined by Platteville/Galena truther Steve Prestegard. And Steve, you got to call a regional quarterfinal game on Saturday. River Ridge Scales Mound defeating Milledgeville. And they will now take on Polo on Monday, a game that we'll have on Extreme 107.1. And Steve, walk us through what you saw from River Ridge Scales Mound on Saturday.
Well, for one thing, Milledgeville has one loss. All right, I got that completely wrong. They have one win this season, and obviously they did not win on Saturday. They played hard the whole game, and they caused some problems for River and Scales Mound. They've kind of had a season-long thing where the Lady Cats really rely on their defense. In fact, the first time that those two teams played, it was 40-12, and this was a higher scoring game on Saturday. But there really wasn't a whole lot of doubt after the first half. Actually, there was a 12-0 run in the second quarter that ended up making the difference. The other problem that River and Scales Mound had is they lost a player due to injury. They came into the game without Lake and Haas, who they left out, just more or less precautionary, but then they got Addison Albrecht hurt, and she seems like she'll be all right for Monday, and Haas probably will be also. And they'll be playing a team that they have already beaten this year, Polo, earlier this season. You just hope that River and Scales Mound doesn't run into more injuries, because they're a little bit offense challenged in the sense that they only have one player who has as much as 10 points a game. Very balanced scoring, and again, they really rely on their defense, but you don't want to have, most teams end up shortening their bench during the postseason for obvious reasons, and you hope that their bench doesn't get shortened by ways they don't want to have happen.
Exactly. And also in girls hoops coming up on Monday night on the Illinois side, it'll be Galena taking on Warren. That'll be on Super Hits 106. Obviously, Galena, probably the favorite to win the Class 1A state championship, if not one of the favorites to win. What do you make of Galena's path, just kind of looking at the bracket and how things kind of look for them as the postseason begins for them on Monday night?
Well, the one thing that I find interesting about how it's done in Illinois, and it did affect River and Scales Mound, they got a 3 seed, and it was East Dubuque that got a number 4 seed, but it was River and Scales Mound who played on Saturday in the first round, and East Dubuque got a bye. Now that to me, for one thing, mathematically that seems strange, except that we've both seen instances where a team gets a bye and then comes out rusty. And, to be honest about it, I think most coaches would prefer to play the first night if they could play at home, as opposed to sitting, okay, they'll go watch the previous game. But, how many times have we seen teams come out and it's like, have you played before? Just because they've off, but
right.
But if you look, as far as, Galena goes specifically, they've beaten Warren twice. Well, they've beaten everybody twice. Basically, they have beaten East Dubuque and Stockton twice. That's the other game, and that's who they would play Friday. And although Freeport-Akron might be interesting in the other half of the bracket in Pecatonica, they've beaten Freeport-Akron. I think they've beaten Pecatonica, and not sure if they played Lena Winslow, but certainly there's not a team there that, unless Galena just comes out and plays terribly, that you think they're not going to be favored against. Interestingly, for River and Scales Mound, the team that I think tends to loom on the other side would be Eastland, and that is the team they might end up facing on Friday in their regional final. which would be again at West Carroll. But the cool thing about it, I think, for fans of the local teams is that you could see a sectional matchup between Galena and River Ridge Scales Mound, and that would be a week from Tuesday. And that would be, I mean, obviously Galena again would be favored, but coaches are always a little nervous about playing a team for a third time for reasons we've obviously seen.
Yep, and like we said, it will be River Ridge Scales Mound taking on Polo Monday night on Extreme 107.1. Galena takes on Warren on Super Hits 106, and we'll follow how the playoff picture plays out on the Illinois side as the regional round continues in the early part of the week. Now, looking at the Wisconsin side, it looks like things have been pretty much decided conference-wise as far as who the conference champions are going to be in our local area. Cuba City has clinched the SWAL. The Six Rivers East, Argyle Pecatonica beat Albany Monticello 50-41 to get their second win over the co-op and have clinched the conference title there. Wazeeka Steuben has a 3-game lead with 2 games to play. They've clinched the Ridge Valley, the only conference to be decided, and we'll figure that out on Thursday. Prairie, Chien, and Platteville tied with 8-1 conference records. Platteville, the much easier matchup at Richland Center on Thursday. Prairie, Chien taking on Dodgeville. Going to come down to the wire in the SWC, Steve.
Well, it is, but I think Platteville has a leg up simply because of who they're playing. Richland Center hasn't won a game yet this season. So that's, first and last, basically, playing for a share of the conference title. Prairie du Chien won Saturday over Dodgeville in their first matchup. They're playing Thursday in their second matchup, and a little bit of a spoiler alert, I guess. If Dodgeville wins their regional semifinal or quarterfinal game against Richland Center, and yes, they'll be favored, that would be matchup number 3 between Prairie du Chien and Dodgeville in as many weeks. Suffice to say, they'll know each other at that point. Not that they don't already, but that would be kind of funny to. Haven't we seen you guys before? Yes,
Yep, absolutely. And so now we'll take a look at the brackets that came out today. Now, we say this with a bit of an asterisk because there was a bracket reveal show on statewide television early on Sunday morning. And as soon as the brackets came out, we started thinking through what our coverage options would be, who are we going to follow, things like that. And when we started reaching out to schools, we got feedback saying the brackets are messed up. And the best way to articulate how things transpired was when the brackets came out for Division 4, we saw that Lancaster was supposed to go to Lomira. And when we reached out to Lomira, we got the message from Brett Rollins saying that Lomira is supposed to be a Division 3 school. So the Division 4 bracket is still not released at the time of this recording, and it is after 4 o'clock. So it's been about 5 hours since the brackets came out that the brackets are not out, even though they were released. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, let's take a look at what we do know with the idea that the brackets could change after everyone sees this. So with that in mind, let's start in Division 3 because we do believe that that one has been solidified and Lomira is in that bracket. We do see that Platteville is a 5 seed in their sectional. Edgerton, the 1 seed. Platteville will travel to Beloit Turner, who is the 4 seed. Prairie du Chien draws the 3 seed. They will take on the winner of Richland Center and Dodgeville. And then Madison Edgewood, a 2 seed, awaiting the winner of number 7 seeded Bigfoot and number 10 seed River Valley. Looking at this bracket, Steve, I don't know how Platteville is a 5 seed other than the fact that a computer decided that they needed to be. And I don't know if there were human beings in this equation. I don't see any reason why Platteville is a 5. I would think 3 maybe at worst, but 5 just seems kind of out of the realm of possibility if humans are doing this.
Yeah, you and I agree on that. And I don't think, and I've seen or I've seen Prairie Chien's whole schedule, and I cannot fathom that they believe that the computers believe that they have a stronger strength of schedule than Platteville did. I have an impossible time believing that's the case. I think one of the things it does is kind of show off an issue that I feel like the seating has, because it is simply it's based first, I should say, on overall record. And the only way that the conference matters is that the conference is part of the regular season schedule and the record. Prairie du Chien has, as of yesterday, with their win over Dodgeville, they've got 2 more wins. Kind of curiously, they played 3 fewer games. By that, they played 1 fewer game actually than Platteville. But more to the point, I just look at their schedule, and I don't think that that's a schedule that's been as difficult as Platteville's has. For one thing, they played a couple of out-of-state teams, and if my understanding is correct, an out-of-state team is supposed to be, as for the purposes of the seeding, given a 500 record, regardless of what their actual record is in their own state. Platteville did play 1 out-of-state team, Dubuque Hempstead, but Prairie du Chien has played at least 3, I think, because they played, I think, Decorah, and they've also played 2 Minnesota schools in that tournament that they're in at Winona State. So I have a hard time understanding how that ended up happening. Now, having said that, Platteville actually beat Prairie du Chien on the road. So, maybe home court is not necessarily a big issue. And the other thing is they wouldn't be playing at home anyway because of, well, wait a second. Actually, I don't think I'm right about that. I think actually they could end up playing at Prairie du Chien, because do they not have the half? Let's see here. No, they would be playing. Yeah, they would. They could play at Prairie du Chien a 3rd time in the sectional semifinal if both teams got that far. Before that, what's interesting about this is that Platteville could be playing at Edgerton for the 2nd year in a row in the regional final. And last year, Platteville went to Edgerton and won. So that rematch would be quite interesting. But first, they have to go all the way to Beloit Turner. The boys team made that trip last year, and it's not close. and then they would have to come back, or go all the way to Edgerton for the Saturday night game. Before we get to the whole thing of another rematch with Prairie du Chien.
Yeah, I would say that if they do meet up against Prairie du Chien in the sectional semis, I would imagine that they move that game to a different site. I don't see how Prairie du Chien would have a home court when that game is supposed to be a neutral site matchup. But it could be Lancaster a halfway point between the two. I can see.
It was Lancaster last year, wasn't it? Because now that I think about it, I think that game was supposed to be.
That is right. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, the Platteville Hillman getting a 5 seed, really kind of threw me off. And again, computerized seeding. That's where we're at, and we don't know the exact algorithm.
And the WIAA doesn't say what it is, which is part of the problem too, because you can just look at it and say, well, why was this? And they're not going to tell you why that was, which is another subject entirely. But be that as it may, Platteville is in a situation where, okay, they got to be on the road. Well, there's a way to prove that their seating was lower than it should be, and that's to first win in Beloit, or actually suburban Beloit, and then win in Edgerton that next day.
So that's our Division 3 bracket. Division 4, just quickly clicking on the hyperlinks, they're still empty. So they have not been released at the time of this recording. But we do.
Nobody's going to play in Division 4. They've suspended the whole division for some reason.
Yeah, we just. No one needs to win Division 4 apparently. So we'll see how we'll see what happens. And once we do know who plays who and verifying that it's accurate, we'll have that on our Queen Bee Radio High School Sports schedule on AM 1590 WPVL.com. The Division 5 brackets are out. I assume that these are still good to go because the WIAA hasn't taken them down. But we do have Argyle Pecatonica as a 1 seed in Sectional 3. They will host Southwestern, the 16 seed. Winner of that game takes on the winner of number 9 seeded Barneveld and number 8 seeded DeSoto. The 5 seed Ithaca takes on 12 seeded Riverdale, and 13 seeded Benton will go to Highland in the quarterfinal round. Bottom half of that bracket, Belmont, the 3 seed, hosts Potosi Cassville. River Ridge, the 6 seed, hosts number 11 seeded North Crawford. Number 7 seeded Blackhawk takes on Shullsburg. And the 15 seed Seneca takes on number 2 seeded Wazeeka Steuben. We should also mention that the other team in the Six Rivers East, that would be Albany Monticello, they are also a 1 seed in Sectional 4. So they are on the opposite side of the bracket as Argyle Pecatonica. And if they were to meet again, it would be at the Resch Center. Both teams would have to win their sectionals if they were to cross paths again. Argyle Pecatonica got the 2 regular season matchups. They did get that win last Tuesday over Albany Monticello, 50-41. But looking at the matchups in Division 5, I think just with the way that the brackets have shown out, I don't think that the matchups in the quarterfinal round are going to be relatively close. I think that there's going to be quite a few blowouts offhand, but once we get into the regional semis and regional finals, there's some pretty juicy matchups in Division 5.
Oh, definitely. For instance, a River Ridge Belmont matchup, especially considering how the last meeting went.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an upset in that, and I'm not quite sure that this would even be considered an upset, but I would have to think Shullsburg has a pretty good shot at beating Blackhawk. That's a 7 matchup. Shullsburg has been kind of besieged by injuries and just they're not what people thought they were going to be. But how many times have we seen teams that had kind of an underwhelming regular season, but suddenly they fix stuff in the postseason? So that I think is a definite. If you're looking for an upset in that first round, I think that's one that is at least a possibility.
Yeah, I would love to see a Wazeeka Steuben Belmont regional final at Wazeeka Steuben. That would be an interesting matchup. And then looking at the top half of the bracket, just with the way Argyle Pecatonica has played this year, I'm curious to see how they would play against Highland. In the second half of the season. I do believe that they've played once before during the regular season, and it just seems like Albany or Argyle Pecatonica has just been on a tear. They look unstoppable from the final scores. Haven't had a chance to see them live, but I am very curious to see how they match up, especially as we get into the regional finals and then ultimately the sectional round. I don't see anyone in the top half of that bracket really, posing a big threat until maybe Highland.
And what's interesting about Highland, they're a team that is not right now playing like they have in past years with different players. They were kind of a team that was good about running up tempo, about turning turnovers into points. And this year, how many times have we seen Highland with extremely low scoring games that they've still won? For instance, Belmont Highland. But this is not the sort of team that was, frankly, was kind of able to put points on the board. And just that this isn't, for whatever reason, for one thing, it's a very young team. And a team that, to be honest about it, has kind of, compared to what some people thought, it's kind of overperformed. Yeah, you're right. That a matchup between Highland and Argyle Peck would be very interesting to watch for the reasons you listed.
Yep, and that's the Division 5 bracket. And just going to do a quick check, just in case there is no bracket yet for Division 4. I will say this, when I did see the Division 4 bracket come out earlier, New Glarus was a 1 seed, Cuba City was the 2 seed. I thought that was a bit of an interesting development there. I think Cuba City's a better team, considering the fact that Mineral Point did beat New Glarus earlier in the season, and Cuba City has beaten Mineral Point twice. So we'll figure out the math, and again, computerized seeding. We don't know the algorithm, we don't know the formula, and we don't even know the teams. We don't know where they're playing. No one really knows anything in Division 4 right now. There is no bracket. We don't know who's even in Division 4, really, when you think about it, because, Lamar was in Division 4 earlier today. So,
well, we know
yeah.
Lancaster will be in Division 4. It appears to be some kind of problem with like the bottom of D3 and the top of D4, perhaps. And because of that reason, I don't think, and this is just a guess, but I don't think that it would be affecting any team in this area. But I can't really say that definitively because, again, we haven't seen the brackets yet. We know more about the Super Bowl than we do about Division 4 right now.
Right. And for what it's worth, sectionals 1 and 2 for the Division 5 bracket are blank as well. So take that for what it's worth. I'm guessing that there's teams moving up, because if one team has to move up, another team's got to move down. I think that's how it works. But we'll see. We'll see what the WIAA concocts and sends our way, and we'll determine what our postseason coverage looks like from there. So before we close up the girls basketball portion of the high school sports roundup, you have an updated high five, Steve Prestegard, and a change at the top. It's not really a surprise. You're a truther of this team. Let's walk us through the high five for this week.
All right. Well, let me find it first because I managed to forget to have it up here. But there is, I don't know, things don't seem to me to have changed a whole lot. Wazika Steuben remains 5th. Albany Monticello remains 4th. And congratulations to both them and Argyle Peck for getting number 1 seeds in their first year. That's really amazing, frankly. And then Cuba City, champion of the Swallows, 3rd. Argyle Peck, because they are the champ of the Six Rivers East, is 2nd. And then once again, the number 1 in the whole tri-state, as far as I'm concerned, is Galena.
Yep. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with those teams. I think the order makes sense. Argyle defeating Albany Monticello for a second time. And yeah, I still would love to see an Argyle Peck Cuba City matchup. I think that would be one heck of a basketball game. I don't, obviously it's not going to happen in the postseason unless the WIAA does something really weird, which again can't be ruled out. I don't want to turn this into a we hate the WIAA thing, and I don't, but yeah, it's a weird day that 5 hours later, after the brackets come out, the brackets aren't out. That's
I hate
where
to
we're
tell
at.
you this. I hate to say this, but this is not the first time this has happened necessarily, because if I'm not mistaken, there was some kind of issue with the football playoffs back in the fall also, and I forget what it was, but I do remember that they had the show, and then all of a sudden the brackets were kind of slow in some division around here, I believe it was actually.
Yes. So. Yeah, what it was is it wasn't this past year, it was the year before, because Benton Scales Mound Shullsburg, the enrollment for Scales Mound wasn't taken into account when they did the seedings. Right. Yep. And Benton Scales Mound Shullsburg was supposed to be Division 6, not Division 7. They were supposed to play Potosi Cassville in the first round, and they raised someone brought it to the attention of, hey, the enrollment numbers are off, and then that led to things being reseeded and redone. So that's where things currently stand with the high five, as well as the brackets in Wisconsin for the WIAA girls basketball postseason. Again, we'll see how Division 4 comes out. We know Division 3 and Division 5 locally, we think, as long as no one touches that. But that's where things stand currently right now in the girls basketball scene in our area. Steve will be rejoining me in just a little bit. We got some high school wrestling to talk about. We got the Subs.com highlight reel as well. And we'll have more on the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup after this on YouTube and SoundCloud.
Looking for a checking account with no monthly requirements or service charge? People's State Bank's People's Checking Account is just what you're looking for. This account includes free debit card, online and mobile banking, bill pay, and much more at no cost to you. You heard that right. No cost to you. We're your local community bank ready to serve you. People's State Bank, member FDIC.
Welcome back to the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup. It was a very busy weekend in regional wrestling in our area, Division II and Division III. Division II was in Dodgeville. Division III was in Mineral Point, and we're joined by our Hall of Famer, Chuck Rasmussen, to discuss all the happenings in high school wrestling this past weekend. And Raz, you were at the Mineral Point Super Regional for Division III. We saw that it was Iowa Grant Highland and Fennimore coming out of the regional team-wise. They're going to be at the team sectional coming up on Tuesday night, which we'll have on 97.7 Country WGLR. And, I don't think it was really a surprise that those were the two teams that came out of it. But, boy, looking at the individual results, seeing that Fennimore had a sectional qualifier in each weight class definitely stood out. Talk about what you saw from that tournament on Saturday.
Well, that was one of those that kind of like the clash. It's one where, again, Fennimore ended up with all 14 of their men advancing on this weekend, and Iowa Grant only had 10. But versus the clash weekend, Fennimore was able to field a 106-pounder, and that makes a quite a bit of difference also too. So, but it was a tremendous tournament. We expected that when you had roughly 30 ranked wrestlers there and X number of state qualifiers coming back, and that it was very good. Riverdale and Mineral Point I thought Mineral Point probably wrestled maybe their the last 2 weekends best that they've wrestled all year.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a young team, and some of their younger guys really came through too. And you look at Fennimore with 14, Iowa Grant 10, Riverdale 8, Mineral Point 7 qualifiers. So that's 39 qualifiers right there. Then you throw in Lancaster with their 4, Parkview had 4, then a couple of the other schools had 3, Peck Argyle with 3, Ithaca Weston with 3, North Crawford Seneca with 2, and DeSoto 1. But with that those numbers, that's quite a representation from our area there too. I think you're going to see a lot of them the next 2 weekends. So
yeah,
should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of those weight classes, just loaded with local talent, and not just the fact that they advance to sectionals, but like you said, the goal isn't just to advance to sectionals. The goal is to advance to the Kohl Center, and there is a ton of wrestlers, especially in Division III, that certainly have that pathway to get beyond the sectional round next week and do wrestle at the Kohl Center 2 weeks from now.
Well, we talked on the broadcast the other day too. There were several weights. 175 stood out, but the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th ranked wrestlers in the state in our super regional, they only rank 9, and 4 of them are right here with us. And there were a couple other weight classes. 165 had the numbers 2, 4, and 6. 190 had 3, 4, and 8. And 215 had 4, 5, and 6 ranked wrestlers there. So again, when you think of a third of the wrestlers ranked in the state are in our super regional, that says something when they're set in super regional. So it was very quality, well run, and just the talent was amazing.
Well, between Division II and Division III, we've consistently seen about 40 wrestlers or so make it to the Kohl Center, and just the regionals and the sectionals in this area in particular. I mean, there's a lot of media coverage around it. There's a lot of respect in this corner of the state as far as the high school wrestling aspect goes, and especially in Division III. So many of the perennial contender programs. They're all, wrestling each other. They're all making each other better. And, that's certainly the case with Fennimore and Iowa Grant Highland, the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the state in Division III they're the same conference, they're neighboring schools. I mean, it is as tough of a path as it is, as there is to get to state. And we will see those two going head to head, or they will be competing in the sectional team sectional on Tuesday nights on 97.7 Country WGOR. Talk about what you make of those two programs as we head into the team sectional coming up on Tuesday.
Well, it should be interesting. Fennimore is going to be wrestling against Royal Wanawak Center in the first round there too. And my guess is that Royal Wanawak Center probably will not score 20 points. I honestly, I don't see them. Well, and here's the strange thing too. I was talking to one of the assistant coaches at Lancaster, and their comment was they could take probably the top 5 teams from our super regional, and they would all probably beat Royal Wanawak Center. They had 4 weight classes that they didn't even have an entry in.
Oh, wow.
They ended up second in that super regional.
Oof.
Yeah. And again, I don't see them honestly winning a match after 132 pounds. They started at 106 and go from there. They have 2 kids, Royal Wanawak Center, that are ranked. Gunnar Wopat at 132 pounds. He plays 6th, he's ranked 6th in the state, and he was a state qualifier last year. And Colin McKittrick at 144 pounds. He's ranked number 7, and he also was a state qualifier last year at 132 pounds. But then when you look at Fennimore's lineup, they've got 7 guys ranked there. They've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that are returning state qualifiers. A couple of the men are ranked number 1. Well, I guess 3 of them. Zan Chavitz there at 150, Tristan Steld at 57, and Evan Gratz at 285. They're the top ranked wrestlers in the state. I do not see that first match being real competitive between Royal and Fennimore. The other match, though, between the La Crosse Aquinas and Iowa Grant, we remember last year they met up the semifinals at this sectional tournament there too, and that was probably one of the most exciting matches that I have been a part of or witnessed or called or whatever for a long time, and that was awesome, and I could see that happening again. The 2 teams have already met. They met back in December. Aquinas beat Iowa Grant beat La Crosse Aquinas 42-34. Now, since then, Aquinas has picked up a 106-pounder, but at the same time too, Elliot Beagle wasn't in the lineup for Iowa Grant. So a couple changes along the way, and I'll say this too. Ryan Allen, Chad Stelt from Fennimore, Allen from Iowa Grant, they are masters. They are 2 of the top coaches in the state as far as working their lineup to their advantage. And they are just tremendous at it, and then it comes down to the coin flip. Who wins? Who has to pull out first? At what weights? And that too would play a factor in those matches. We talk about not being able to bet or one thing to another, but if I did have a $5 bill, I'm going to put it on Iowa Grant again against Aquinas, and then you get that final matchup between Iowa Grant and Fennimore. That's going to be a dogfight again. And again, you got the 2 masters there as far as Chad and Ryan, and it will be fun. Will be fun.
Yeah, and one of the things that you did mention about Iowa Grant Highland when we last covered them against Mineral Point, you mentioned how deep Iowa Grant Highland is as far as number of wrestlers that they have in their program, because there's a couple of wrestlers that, if it weren't for the fact that they had so many studs, the wrestlers that aren't necessarily always competing are still very, very good. And that gives you the ability to manipulate the lineup and get the matches that you want as far as, stylistically, what makes the most sense for the opponents that you have coming up.
Yep. Yeah, and again, it's you got to start to play the math numbers too, and figure
Hmm.
things out. You know what you put this wrestler out here. Okay, um, you might get beat, but can they keep it to a 3 or a 4 point a decision mathematically? Whereas if you make the move and you move somebody maybe else up, maybe they can get a pin. So it's a math game too, and a lot of people I think don't realize that, but those that do, it's fun. It's fun too. So when things work out, and I think wrestlers for both of those two teams, Fennimore and Iowa Grant, have bought into the thought that hey, it's a team first,
Hmm.
and whatever it takes for the team to win, I'll be there.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to seeing it because you mentioned last year, the thrilling win that Iowa Grant Highland had against Aquinas. Remember the year before that when Fennimore had to face Aquinas in the sectional final matchup, and it came down to the seventh tiebreaker criteria
That's right.
that sent them to state. I mean, it has been a bonkers tournament in Division III in the team sectional. And we're looking forward to having that one and having to stay closer to home for this year's version of
nice.
it too.
That'd be
Yes,
nice.
absolutely. That will be in Fennimore, and we will have coverage of the Division III team sectional from Fennimore on Tuesday night again on 97.7 Country WGLR. Let's pivot to Division II for just a second. We didn't have any local teams advance out of the regional in Dodgeville. We did see Lodi and Sugar River get the team bids to advance. Darlington Blackhawk finishing third with 171, Evansville in fourth with 161, and then Belmont Platteville taking home that fifth place spot. If you put any stock in the team rankings, according to Wisconsin Grappler, Evansville was the number 6 ranked team in the states. Lodi ranked number 4. We know Lodi's, one of those perennial contenders in Division II, so it's not really a surprise that they came out of there. But seeing Sugar River get in over Evansville and seeing Darlington Blackhawk have a better placement than Evansville, maybe a bit of a surprise on the surface, but as far as the local wrestlers individually, a very strong showing around here. Dodgeville having 3 first place finishers as well as 2 runner-up finishes. Dylan Weigel of Belmont Platteville advanced. Owen Seffrud still undefeated for Darlington Blackhawk. Let's see, Ross Christ, Maddox Goebel. Very strong showing for a lot of our local wrestlers around here. Something that we should keep an eye on is Mason Mandarano of Belmont Platteville had an injury. He had a medical forfeit in the finals, but he's still going to sectional. He's still going to compete. Got a little dinged up in his match, and then Reed Spurley deciding to medically forfeit as well, not wrestle in the finals because he had been wrestling against doctor's orders pretty much. He had to sign a waiver to compete in the tournament over the weekend. But boy, what a strong showing for our wrestlers locally in Division II. Your initial thoughts when you see the results of the Division II regional from Dodgeville?
Just glancing at that too, as you said, Mandarano and Spurley, neither of them wrestled in the clash. They came back, and again, both did the medical forfeits in there too. So, and a wise decision, I think, knowing the whole situation. I think a good choice by the wrestlers. They're probably their parents and coaches too. So, a good situation there. And both of those young men, plus a few others, they're going to be in the state tournament in 2 weeks. So it should be good there too. We looked at that a little bit ago. There was if it went according to the Wisconsin Grappler, we would be covering a dozen wrestlers in the state finals there in 2 weeks. So we'll hope that it does. We got a couple, number 1 and number 2 matchups going to go again this weekend. It'll be fun. It'll be real fun. And I'll mention here too, there's 24 ranked wrestlers. If you want us to come up and just see some good wrestling, come up to Fennimore on Tuesday night too. 24 ranked wrestlers just among those 4 teams, and 19 returning state qualifiers. So come on,
man,
it'll be fun.
Yeah, that gym in Fennimore is going to be electric. It is probably going to be one of the most jam-packed events. I would dare say there might be more, if not as many spectators as you might see in the field house at the state tournament. I mean, it is going to have a very strong following. Hopefully Fennimore has enough capacity to fit in as many people that want to get in and see it. It is going to be a jam-packed night in that gym on Tuesday night for the team sectional. So we have the team sectionals coming up on Tuesday night on 97.7 Country WGLR in Division 3. And then coming up on Saturday, the individual sectionals will have coverage from Mineral Point for Division 3, again on 97.7 Country WGLR. And the Division 2 will be from Wisconsin Dells. We'll have that on Extreme 107.1. Raz, some final thoughts on the regionals from this past weekend. Again, Division 3 kind of turned out the way we expected it to as far as the score wise, but man, was there a lot of good wrestling this past weekend.
A lot of good wrestling, and I'm talking to a few afterwards too. This going to the Super Regionals 2 years ago has really helped our area, because we have, you look at the number, the people that were in the 3 and the 4 spots there, they wouldn't have been able to go on, but now they're able to go on. And again, a lot of them are from our local teams too. So it was a good thing. The WIAA has done some very nice things. They're adding the ladies tournament, and if you want to come up, the ladies are wrestling up at Mineral Point on Saturday also, and it's going to go back and forth. I don't know if you looked at the schedule, but there is a schedule put out by the WIAA, kind of alternating rounds between the guys and the gals, and he's going to see some really good lady wrestlers too. So it'll be fun.
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of them in this area too. So yeah, definitely pay attention to them. Go support them. Check it out. And Mineral Point has done an awesome job, especially in the between the Clash, regionals, sectionals, having gone there, 3 consecutive weeks, that they're doing an outstanding job over there, running those tournaments, taking care of us and helping us be able to bring that coverage. And yeah, we will see some awesome wrestling next weekend with berths in the opportunity to wrestle at the Kohl Center on the biggest stage on the line. Looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out. Thank you, Raz, for joining us and talking about the high school wrestling scene in our area. We'll have more on the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup after this on YouTube and SoundCloud.
Check out Sups.com. Sups is Southwest Wisconsin's go-to supplement store. Find all your favorite supplement brands at the best prices from local people. Fuel your fitness journey. Sups.com, your go-to supplement store with locations in Fennimore and Dubuque.
This week's highlight reel is presented by Sups.com.
Cross-court pass, Lexi for 3. Got it! Lexi Rickers, a freshman, drains a 3, and we have a tie game. 20. So inbounding, it'll be Frederick. Gets it into Bedward. 2 seconds. 1 second. And is there a foul? The officials are talking it over here. So the foul happened before the buzzer. They put 0.3 seconds back on the clock, which means Addison Bedward could win the game here for Highland at the free throw line. We're tied at 29. First free throw, no good though. Well, she just has to make one for Highland to win this thing with 0.3 seconds left. Let's see if she can hit this one. Addison Bedward. Second one, good! Highland fans go nuts. Belmont will have an inbound play, but they would need a miracle. Inbounding, it's Morgan Freeman for the Braves. She will throw it. It is deflected by Rundy, but no good. Rundy thought she was fouled. No call, and that's it. Your final score, 30-29, Highland over Belmont in a thriller.
11 extra, the ball still is Spillane. Now back on top, Camden Russell for 3. Late night banking in Patch Grove for Camden Russell. Ball right wing, River Ridge, single, skip pass left corner. Worley rises for 3 and connects. Wolves toss long, Reagan Sinkel near the center circle. Now for Mandy Worley, right wing, rises for three. Got another one. River Ridge turnover number 4. Miners in transition, runner left of the lane line, and the hoop and the harm is good for Taylor Russell. 11-11 on the first half shoebox scoreboard. Does that make a wish time? Ball left side. 3 ball coming up. Railing Quick knocks down the 3. Young Quickness with her 14th of the year. Ball left side. Now a 3 ball left wing. That's knocked down. Stella Spillane with the 3-pointer. For Camden Russell working on Worley. Now accelerates mid-post left shot up on the run and off the glass for 2. And finds Sletton inside the arc, back out. And off for Adrian. On the dribble with the right hand, runner right in the lane line off the glass. And late night banking in Patch Grove for Erin Adrian. She's got 8 points, and we're tied at 21 with 2:35 to go first half. In between the circles for River Ridge. She'll give for Adrian, mid-post right now for Sletton. Back right corner, Mason for 3. Got it from the right side.
Back to Winch at the right wing, pass to the quarter, and Kinney, and the ball lost. Grabbed by Vossen going back the other way, and Vossen takes it all the way in for 2. Having to get full court pressure, but take it away, or a grab back, and then Kelly lays it up, takes it all the way in. And a pass to Kelly in the quarter, or to the right wing, fake 3, jumper from the foul line is good, and a foul. And now over at the left wing is Kinderman, to the baseline and Cruiser back out to Hitterman for 3, left wing, bullseye! 24-10. Hitterman goes to the corner, where it's picked up, and the 3 on the way, bullseye for Hudson Keeler.
Levens up on top. And off to the side now, and driving in and putting it off the glass, and good! Avery Richard. Here's a jumper in the lane, no good by Olsen. Put back, Rundy falling away, left side, puts it in. Boy, Rundy is having quite a week. Rebound, Ingersoll grabs it, kicks it out to Olsen. She kicks out right-hand side, and a 3, that's the way you do it. That's Emily Wigman with the 3. Gets to there to Wegman, and now a 3 on the way. Good by Wegman. Olsen, she averages 21.8. Now here's a rhythm 3 for the right side. She knocked it down. Noble with the basket. That's only her 43rd 3 of the season. Wow, she is deadly. Diagonal pass, corner left, driving in, and then dishing back out to Olsen. 3, that's the way you do it. And the rebound tracked down by Barrington for Platteville. Ball stolen away. Back out to Olsen. 3 ball. That's the way you do it.
This ball's into McLean. Now kicks out. Right corner 3. Knocking it down is Garrison Tashner. Hinderman finds a teammate in the right corner. Hinderman gets it back on the right wing. Catch and shoot. 3. Knocks it down. Come down the floor quickly. Puts up a floater off the front of the rim. Collects his own rebound, gets back to the top, 3-pointer straight ahead, knocking it down is Davin Edge. Tashner gets it across center court, charging towards the basket, can't get the shot to go down. Cuba City with the rebound, Banana, 1-on-1 back the other way, gets the left-handed layup to go. Right-handed dribble, back to the top of the arc, works his way over to the right corner. Now Richard, dribbling into the paint, runs into a double team, puts up a floater, knocks it down. Impressive showing on top of Cuba City. That Conference Boys Hoops on Super Hits 106 and the Queen Bee Radio Sports YouTube channel. Banana loads up for 3, knocks it down. Platteville on top of Cuba City. Catch and shoot 3 from the left corner is good for Lucas Ludlam. And ball works its way to Hudson Keeler, but stolen away by Babel, coming back the other way, and he slams it home. Simon says, let me dunk. He's got 12 points. 84-39, 5:55 to go.
Bulls top of the key now, drive left to the lane line. Sletton runner up and off the glass for 2. That is a Gerard Abbing of Platteville Realty bank shot, and Sletton the bucket. Now Zinkel across the midcourt stripe high on the right wing. Hesitation move now goes around the defender to right of the lane line. Now left corner, a 3-ball coming up. Quick cans it! Brayling Quick in her 16th of the season puts the ball right side for Graff. Tosses left way. Brayling Quick launches the 3. She got another one. second of the game for Braylon Quick, 17 in the campaign, 18-6 River Ridge, 16 seconds to play first half. Ball, 3 trips down, 3 turnovers for River Ridge. Ball right side, Morgan for 3. She got it from the right wing. Jessica Morgan's team high, 46th. Full timeout River Ridge, as it's a 5-point game now, 18-13. Looking ahead, passing right side, Olmstead rises for 3. And connects from the right wing. Mallory Olmstead's 5th of the year. She's got 9 points tonight. Now on top for Weber, launches the 3. And Lancaster leads! Lily Weber's 17th of the year, first points on the night, and it's 25-24. Lancaster's come all the way back. And Gibson gets back. Morgan up on top with 35 seconds. Now left corner, Olmstead for 3. And she idles it in! We're tied at 28. Mallory Olmstead's second three-pointer of the game. 28 all, and a full timeout River Ridge. 11 seconds. Worley, right wing, and Reagan Zinkel with 7 seconds. Zinkel, right corner for Mason with 5 seconds. Mason back to Zinkel with 3, 2. Zinkel, 18-footer. Misses the mark, air ball, and we've got free basketball from Patch Grove. Worley to the top of the key, now right arc, now gives for Graff. Going right to the lane line, around a defender, now splits 2 in the layup, good for Graff. Second free throw for Zinkel, misses. Rebound down for Green. 5 seconds. Pushing it down the floor. It's tap. Martin for 3. Misses. And that's your ball game. In overtime, River Ridge outlasts Lancaster 39-33.
Gets it across the center court, straight dribbles into the paint. Nice pass down low, and the reverse layup is good for number 12, Hunter Straka. Finderman skips it into Cruiser. Runs it down low, Van Anda fires back out, catch and shoot 3, right wing, got it! Miles Hinderman with the 3. Hinderman to Cruiser in the left corner, goes baseline, turns around, fades away, knocks it down. What a shot by Cruiser. Boston skips it in as Miller puts up the shot, and the bucket counts, and the foul. Calvin Van Anda in the left wing, gets to Tyson Richard, loads up for 3, knocks it down. Tyson Richard with the 3, and Cuba City is back to within 3, 34-31. Brady Blentendorf on the high left wing, finds Tyler Harris, loads up for 3, knocks it down. Harris finds McCulloch, top of the arc. Down the left corner, 3-pointer on the way from Brady Sheen. It is good, and the foul. The shot was made by Sam Kramer.
Grow your business by enhancing your digital marketing efforts with Queen Bee Radio and Phase 3 Digital. We provide customized solutions based on your business's unique needs, including targeted advertising, website development, and search engine optimization. Contact us at 608-349-2000 or visit p3da.com/Platteville to learn more.
Time to talk boys hoops now on the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup. I'm now rejoined by the Platteville/Galena Truther, Steve Prestegard. And because you are a Platteville Truther, let's talk about Platteville. Platteville clinching the conference outright with their win last week against Prairie du Chien. They had some wins last week against Cuba City, Prairie du Chien, and a win over the weekend against New Glarus. Had a chance to cover the helmet in their game against Cuba City. Had a chance to talk with Coach Hoosier post-game, and he's said that his team has found another gear over their last few games. They've looked pretty darn impressive against Cuba City. Some very impressive wins against some very good teams as of late. Congrats to Platteville on winning the SWC, and yeah, they very much look the part of one of the best teams in our area.
Well, they added to that Saturday because they went to New Glarus and knocked off the Glarner Knights, and I believe New Glarus is leading the Capital Conference. They're part of the Capital Conference right now, so they had quite a week, to beat a perennial in Cuba City. And Prairie du Chien, the later the season gets, the more difficult they are to play, but they didn't seem to have a huge problem with that. And then Saturday to go to New Glarus, even though they were a little bit shorthanded, they were missing 2 starters. But that is a big win also for Platteville as well. And they do have kind of a big week this week because they will be going to Madison Edgewood on Monday. That is a team that, Platteville's had difficulty with, but number one, they're not having a very good year. Number two, they're on their second coach of the season because their coach suddenly resigned due to personal issues, I believe, just before the new year. So Edgewood's kind of in a tailspin right now and just very kind of a chaotic season. But it's always difficult to play Edgewood, particularly at Edgewood. So, but you certainly look at what Platteville has done recently, and they have not lost a game since they went to Milwaukee and played Monona Grove. And we've said this before, but their other two losses were to Darlington and Mineral Point right at the start of the year, and they were a little bit shorthanded due to football injuries. So they are. If you look at their postseason, which has not been determined yet, we assume it'll be done next week. But if you look at the other half of their bracket, I think New Glarus is a possible rematch up again in their half of the bracket. But on the other half, there are two teams that are ranked. There's Lake Mills, which is ranked 5th, and Lakeside Lutheran, which is ranked 8th. I believe that's correct. But they would not see, number one, they wouldn't see both of them. And number two, if they see either of them, that would be in the sectional finals. So, Platteville obviously needs to keep playing well. But as we've discussed, they got a guy that's very difficult to guard in Zach McLean. They've got a player who's I really think is about one of the best all-around players in the area, in Lucas Ludlum. They have guys that are playing very well right now, Davin Edge and Simon Babel. And they've got a deep bench, similar to what they had last year. And that's a formula that travels well in the postseason.
Mm-hmm. And this is a similar thing that I just thought of right now, because we kind of talked about this in football with Platteville as well. What if Platteville played Mineral Point at this point in the season instead of the beginning part of the season, or playing against Darlington in the second half of the season? Do you think the outcome is a little bit different, or do you think that they match up better now, just given how they've played as of late? Do you think they're a better matchup against teams like Mineral Point and Darlington?
Well, they would have experience from having played them the first time.
Right.
Although, Darlington is pretty much very similar to the team that they were last year. And Mineral Point's a little bit different, but not hugely different, certainly. It would be closer. I'm not sure that the result would be different because let's remember, how many losses does Mineral Point have? 1. Right. How many losses does Darlington have? 2, and one of them is to Mineral Point. So,
right.
I think those two teams are the best teams in the area. Spoiler alert for the high five. But on the other hand, it would be closer certainly, but that I think they would probably be at least the same teams winning. But Platteville, they've only lost one other game other than those two, and that was to a much bigger school, Monona Grove. So, records. I think it was Bill Parcells talking about the football world, where he said that your record is what you are, and at least in those top teams, they are that good because that's what their record says they are.
I've agreed. The other conferences, no changes in the SWAL. Mineral Point and Darlington still at the top of the conference, although, as you mentioned, Darlington did fall to West Salem 98-90 in a neutral site game at Prairie du Chien. That was a makeup game from a tournament that those two were supposed to have, but it got snowed out back in December. And looking at the remaining schedule for both Mineral Point and Darlington, they're playing the bottom half of the conference in those games. I don't see them toppling Mineral Point or Darlington in those matchups. So it looks like it's going to be Mineral Point and Darlington finishing 1-1 in the SWAL. They'll be the co-champions unless something really weird happens in the next couple weeks here.
Yeah, I think that wherever they end up playing, that looks like a sectional that screams a sectional semifinal matchup. That those two teams, I don't know, depends on the night. It's probably a coin flip as far as who's going to beat the other for the third time. If that matchup doesn't happen, everybody's going to be stunned about that.
Absolutely. Yep. The Six Rivers West is coming down to the wire. Potosi hanging on to a 1-game lead over River Ridge. They escaped Shullsburg 52-51 on Thursday night. Potosi's remaining games, they host Cassville, a game in the previous matchup where Cassville lost by 3 to Potosi. Potosi then goes to Benton and then closes the season out at Highland, which is not an easy game. River Ridge's remaining games, they host Benton, they go to Belmont, and then go to Cassville. It's a 1-game cushion for Potosi, but it's not a comfortable 1-game lead by any stretch. They have to play their best basketball down the home stretch of the season. They're going to close out the Six Rivers West outright.
Yeah, and I mean, for one thing, both Shullsburg and Highland, I think, have been pleasant surprises this year. I don't know that people thought they'd be as good as they are, but they have done pretty well this season, actually. In fact, if you look ahead again, a third matchup would be, even if Potosi beat both of those teams, which they did, the third matchup might be even more interesting, possibly. But I think River Ridge has a little bit of lack of strength of schedule advantage in those last games. But on the other hand, Potosi does have the lead. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how that all pans out. This is going to be quite a week in the Six Rivers West.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. The Six Rivers East is very interesting as well. Barneveld 8-1, Pecatonica 8-2, Argyle 7-2 if the standings on WISports are accurate. And yeah, we'll kind of see how the next week to 2 weeks shapes out the Six Rivers East. It's pretty much been those three at the top, and A beats B, B beats C, C beats A. That's kind of been the formula in the Six Rivers East so far on the season. The Ridge and Valley, North Crawford has a 1-game lead now in the conference. Ithaca lost to DeSoto on Friday night, so North Crawford back in the driver's seat in the Ridge and Valley. So between the Six Rivers East and Ridge and Valley, I think, we were talking about Ithaca defeating North Crawford last week and how big of a week Ithaca had, or how much of a downfall it was for North Crawford having lost to Southwestern and Ithaca. But now all of a sudden, North Crawford back in the driver's seat in the Ridge and Valley.
Yeah, and that is, if you look at those teams, we'll put those two conferences together for a second. The Six Rivers East and the Ridge and Valley. You look at North Crawford, they have 17 wins, and Ithaca has 16. If you look at the Six Rivers East, you have Barneveld with 14 wins, Peck with 12, and Argyle with 13. So I think the two from the Ridge and Valley are probably better than the two from the Six Rivers East. Although the Six Rivers East has made kind of a nice comeback. Remember that year where there was only one team in the entire Six Rivers East, happened to be the champion, that had a winning record overall, and got spanked right away in the playoffs. So, and the only postseason wins for anybody were two teams that played each other. So at least they seem to be better than they were. But let's keep in mind that the Six Rivers East was 1-6 against the Six Rivers West in the Six Rivers crossover games. And as far as North Crawford and Ithaca go, those are teams that don't get down here very often, so it's kind of hard to say exactly. We're a little bit more up with Wazeeka Steuben, depending on how their year goes. So it's kind of it's a little bit hard to tell up there, if they are really as good as their record or not. They don't tend to play teams in this area for the most part, with the exception of Wazeeka Steuben. So I guess we'll all find out if they end up on the postseason schedule up here.
Yep, agreed there. And let's move into the NUI West, where there's a big matchup coming up Thursday night. East Dubuque 9-1 taking on Galena 8-2, and that's essentially going to decide the NUI West, Steve. And we do know that the postseason pairings came out for the Illinois side. I assume that they are in much better shape than the girls basketball ones on the WIAA side. We're not going to keep taking cheap shots at the WIAA. Credit to me for not doing so. But let's look at But let's talk about this matchup between East Dubuque and Galena. You've had a chance to cover both these teams, I believe, earlier in the season. What do you make of the matchup coming up Thursday night? Seems like it's going to be kind of a blockbuster matchup in the NUI West.
Oh, I definitely believe it is. For one thing, this will be, believe it or not, their fourth meeting this year. And in the first meeting was actually the very first game we did, which was the tournament at Scales Mound.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Galena won that. They played again in a tournament, and Galena won that. And then came Warrior Strong Night at East Dubuque, and East Dubuque came up with a huge win. And, you know, for a team that you look at them, and I think we've said this before, there's one kid on that team who is as tall as 6'2". He's not an inside player, and he doesn't start. But this is a team that really plays hard. They play physical. They are, for a team that you would figure would have a difficult time playing inside. Well, you know, they let Cooper Glasgow from Galena score a ton of points, but they didn't let anybody else score, basically. So I think this is going to be a fascinating matchup coming up on Thursday between these two teams. And here's the weird part, I guess, in the NUI West. If you know, we've been talking East Dubuque, Galena, and Scales Mound all year. That's the order in the conference. But if you go by overall record, the order is exactly reversed. Scales Mound has 21 wins, Galena has 19, and East Dubuque has 17. So you obviously, in East Dubuque's case, they've been winning the right teams from winning the right games, I should say, in order to be where they are in the conference. They have before Tuesday. Warren is going to East Dubuque. Warren is about a 500 team, and Galena will be going to West Carroll. West Carroll has won one game this season. So I think that make it even more tantalizing. There's probably a bigger chance of Warren beating East Dubuque than there is of Galena losing to West Carroll, which so you could conceivably have coming into Thursday night, those two teams tied for first. But if they win, then East Dubuque is clinched to tie, but Galena could end up also tied for first. And Galena has not won a NUI West title since, I believe I heard, 2007. So that could be a pretty historic night possibly on Thursday in Galena, which I really believe that it's one of the fun places to cover a game in this area because of the atmosphere and because the announcers are jammed into that. I call it the skybox, where we're in very tight, but it's a great view. It's also about 100 degrees in there every night that we're over there. So I'm really looking forward to Thursday night. That's going to be a blast, I think.
And the Illinois pairings came out for the boys' side. You had mentioned the conference records and the overall records essentially being, in reverse order in the for the top three teams in that conference. How does the seedings come out for those three teams, and what do you make of the paths for these teams as they begin their postseason run?
Well, the first thing to know about Illinois is that they do it differently from Wisconsin. They seed everybody, and then they start to put matchups together that are actually based on geography, which is why you get some weird numbers. For instance, Stockton, the 13 seed, playing the number 3 seed in South Beloit. I'll just go over the local games. Warren is the 12 seed. They're at number 5 seed East Dubuque. That one, mathematically works. But Stockton, a 13 seed, is playing number 3 seed South Beloit. River Ridge, a 7 seed. They're, by the way, coming off a big win over Warren Saturday afternoon. They won on a buzzer, or a 3 with 5 seconds left. They are going to Lena Winslow. That's a 7-6 matchup, believe it or not. That winner then will be playing Scales Mound, which got a number 2 seed, despite the fact that they're playing that they are going to finish third in the NUI West. And then if you skip down to the Pecatonica Regional, you get Dakota, a 10 seed at number 9 Pearl City. Alden Hebron is a 16 seed. They go to number 1 seed, or playing number 1 seed Pecatonica. Orangeville, Freeport, Aquin, is going to get Galena in the first round. Orangeville's 14. Galena's the number 4 seed. And then one more, Durand, Rockford Christian Life will be going to Durand. Now, what is interesting about that is that East Dubuque, Scales Mound, and Galena are all in different regionals, or I should say East Dubuque and Scales Mound are in the same regional, but Galena's in a different regional. So how about this? Maybe Galena plays East Dubuque in meeting number 5 in the sectionals. That would be kind of crazy. 5 meetings in a season, but
yeah,
that could conceivably end up happening.
Yeah, very interesting how the brackets shape out and potential matchups. And like you said, on the Wisconsin side, if you see each other 3 times, it's, the 2 regular season matchups and then, potentially 1 postseason matchup. But, seeing the same team 5 times, I mean, that seems kind of over the top, at least from our standpoint. But
one thing that's interesting about that also is that there's a possibility, I believe, that Potosi and Argyle could end up playing 3 times, and they're not in the same conference. But the reason is that they played non-conference, and then they played in the Six Rivers crossover. And I think a third matchup is possible because I believe Potosi and Argyle are in the same sectional. Unlike the Six Rivers East teams, except for Albany and Monticello, on the girls' side.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We'll keep tabs on that. Again, East Dubuque and Galena taking on each other on Thursday night. We anticipate conference title implications on that one on Extreme 107.1 coming up on a Thursday night. Before we close up the boys hoops portion of it, let's look over your high five for this week on the boys' side. Steve, let's run it down.
Well, in 5th place, I still can't decide between Ithaca and North Crawford, so they're tying for 5th. Potosi I have in 4th. I still think they're, the best team of the Six Rivers West, although we'll see if they have to share the title with somebody. Platteville, we talked about earlier about, how well they're playing right now. And I broke the tie. Well, actually, they broke the tie in a sense because of Darlington's getting beat by West Salem. They are in 2nd place, and Mineral Point is back at number 1 for now. I guess that probably, I would think, is how it's going to end up through the end of the regular season. But wouldn't you love to have a ticket to the Mineral Point Darlington 3rd matchup?
Oh my gosh! But like you said earlier, if that doesn't happen, something weird has to happen. That there's no real reason that those two wouldn't see each other, because we mentioned this last week that at the time we recorded last week's show, Mineral Point and Darlington were, by far the top 2 teams in that half sectional. Everyone else in the half sectional was below 500. And I don't know how you even seed those teams. I'm very curious to see what the computer does or doesn't do. We'll see how that shakes out. As far as your high five, I'm in agreement with it. I would say that because of Ithaca losing to DeSoto late last week, I think North Crawford is back in the driver's seat in that Ridge and Valley Conference. So I do think North Crawford is now ahead of Ithaca in that regard. So Ithaca would break that tie, at least in my view. But the order seems to be in alignment with the way that things have shaped out. There is that natural order that we talked about. Mineral Point did beat Darlington. Darlington beat Platteville. Platteville beat Potosi. And we have yet to see what's going to happen with those Ridge and Valley teams in that 5 spot. So yeah, I'm in agreement with it. And, still a couple weeks to go in the season. The boys brackets will be coming out next week.
We hope.
And hopefully we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm very curious, especially in Division 5. How those teams are going to be seeded. We mentioned about Division 4. How do you seed those teams? We already kind of know the outcome. I don't think it's really going to matter who plays who when. It's going to be Mineral Point and Darlington. But Division 5, boy, those 2 sectionals, or those 2 half sectionals, I should say, are going to be pretty loaded, because keep in mind, Southwestern is in a completely different sectional altogether from Potosi. And those 2 matched up the last 2 postseasons, and a regional final and a sectional semifinal over the past 2 years. Very curious to see how Division 5 shakes out because of what ends up happening in the Six Rivers West, with both River Ridge and Potosi having 3 games left on their schedule.
Yeah, that is, if you look at as far as Potosi's sectional, now as I look at this, I was wrong before where I said that Potosi and Argyle could end up facing each other because, well, they could. That would be state, because actually the whole Six Rivers East plus Belmont and Benton, interestingly, is over, and Shullsburg also is over in the Evansville sectional, whereas Potosi is going north this year. So they would end up facing, conceivably Ithaca or North Crawford, or obviously River Ridge again, if that's how that matches up. I'll tell you what this reminds me of, and that is back in 1991, where Cassville actually began their run of 5 straight trips to state because of this kind of matchup, because they were in a different sectional from Shullsburg, who ended up winning the old Blackhawk Conference that year. And so Cassville didn't win the conference, but went to state. And Shullsburg did win the conference, went to state, and won state. And if you look at that, obviously Potosi and Southwestern are not in the same conference, but that's a possible outcome this time around. If you look at, again, the fact that you have so many teams in this area going east for the postseason, whereas you have the kind of the western part of the Six Rivers West going north for the postseason. And again, facing teams in the Ridge and Valley. And typically the Six Rivers West has fared pretty well against the Ridge and Valley over the years.
Yeah, very, very curious how those seedings pair out. And we hope we can react to them on next week's episode of the High School Sports Roundup. We hope that everything goes much better than it did for the girls brackets. And there's still no girls bracket for Division 4. So, still a phantom bracket. We'll see how we'll see what the matchups look like eventually sometime down the line, whether it's today or tomorrow. But
hopefully before next Tuesday, when they're all supposed to start playing each other.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. But that will wrap up our high school sports roundup for this week. Thank you, Steve, for joining me for the girls and boys basketball side of things. We also had Chuck Rasmussen and Scott Tolsman with our wrestling coverage. And we will have another episode of the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup next Monday, where we will talk about the upcoming postseason matchups for girls and boys basketball, telling you about the teams and the individuals qualifying for state in wrestling. It's a jam-packed week of high school sports coming ahead, and we'll recap it on our episode next Monday. Thanks for tuning in to the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup on YouTube and SoundCloud. We'll see you next week.